Why is Kamala Harris ignoring Democratic voters on Gaza? In the face of mass starvation, charges of genocide, and the deaths of tens of thousands of children, Kamala Harris remains ironclad in her support for Israel's genocide.
I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself.
Kamala acknowledges far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, but insists on continuing the flow of U.S. weapons to Israel, ruling out even suspending some weapons shipments. So, if Harris isn't listening to her voters, who is she listening to?
Good morning, AIPAC.
The numbers don't lie. Poll after poll show that a majority of Americans, 61%, and an overwhelming 77% of Democrats are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and demanding an end to the flow of weapons that fuel Israel's atrocities. Despite this, Harris used her platform on CNN to double down on her unwavering commitment to send billions of dollars of weapons to Israel, no matter what they do.
The Democratic Party is the party that's in power right now, and that is the party that is enabling and funding the first live-stream genocide in the history of the world.
Across Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, 80% or more of Democrats and independents support a permanent ceasefire, and 60% or more disapprove of more weapons going to Israel. Polls show voters in these key swing states would be more likely to support Harris if she cut off weapons to Israel, and more than 300 delegates have signed the Uncommitted Movement's pledge to become ceasefire delegates. Before teaming up with Biden, Kamala Harris had received $182,000 from AIPAC. With Biden, she's received more than $5.3 million. Like the mainstream media, when Kamala Harris speaks about Israeli suffering, she's specific, she's blunt. But when it comes to the Palestinian people enduring decades of ethnic cleansing and occupation, she dances around the reality of Israeli oppression.
So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety.
Passive, vague language that strips away the brutal truth of this genocide. Harris, a former prosecutor, claims to uphold the rule of law. But by continuing to send arms to Israel, she is knowingly violating U.S. law, including the Foreign Assistance Act, the Arms Export Control Act, the Geneva Conventions, all of which prohibit aiding countries that chronically violate human rights. Instead of upholding these laws, she's shredding them. So it begs the question, is she really the lesser evil?
Our bonds are rooted in our shared history and are strengthened by the ties between our peoples. And in the words of Shimon Peres, whose loss we mourn so deeply, for Israel's existence, we need the friendship of the United States of America.
As of this summer, Muslim support for Democrats has plummeted by 40%, and more voters are leaning towards third-party options in disgust. Harris isn't just losing voters, she's losing the moral high ground. And alarmism about Trump pales in comparison to what Biden and Harris have been doing by funding and fueling the mass murder of Palestinian children and defending Israel's right to murder them. In this regard, Kamala Harris is not the lesser evil. And it's obvious the outcome of the US election, unless she does a 180-degree turn, has no impact on the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
They talk about, oh, our party is a Big Ten party, Muslims, Jews, white people, black people, doesn't matter. You know, we welcome everybody. But somehow that rule doesn't apply to Palestinians?
The Democratic Party was perfectly comfortable excluding Palestinians from the stage at the DNC. So it should be no surprise when Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslim Americans, and many other progressives exclude themselves from the polls come November.